And I will be on hand if there's anything that you need, Joel or Janelle. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Joel, and you can tell us a little bit about the organization and what brings you here today.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Marilyn, and nice to be with you all today. I'm going to share my screen. Give me one moment here. And if I could get a thumbs up that everybody's seen it. Awesome. Thank you very much. So as Marilyn said, I'm actually the president and CEO of Executive Service Corps South Florida. As she mentioned, we are a nonprofit organization, and we're a little bit different in that we only work with other nonprofits. Although when Marilyn mentioned that we do provide business services, we don't really provide business services per se in terms of accounting and those types of services that you might think of. We're all about capacity building. And so we do a variety of different things that all revolve around capacity building, including executive search and recruitment in general, and executive coaching, as well as strategic planning, training, all kinds of things that have to do with helping us nonprofits do what we do better. And the way that we do that is our organization is primarily comprised of volunteers, and our volunteers are very special in that they are retired C-suite executives from both the public and private sector. So they bring to bear all that experience that they've cultivated throughout their career to help us nonprofits do what we do better and more efficiently. So with that said, I want to tell you that because we work with so many nonprofits, we wanted to talk to you about some recruitment best practices in this particularly challenging labor market. And we began to hear about this. We've been doing a series of trainings through the Community Foundation of Broward. And we've done 3 cohorts of 12 each, nonprofit CEOs and executive directors on resiliency and risk management. And one of the themes that started coming up, particularly around COVID and maybe a year after COVID hit, was the challenges that they were facing with hiring and retaining staff. And of course, this isn't unique to the nonprofit sector. All businesses have been having this challenge, but this has been a particularly interesting and challenging labor market per se. And so before we get started talking about some of our best practices, I wanted to give you a little bit of background. I did some labor market research about, well, what exactly was happening in the labor market that has surfaced as we're all experiencing it right now. So everybody has been referring to this phenomena that's been going on as the Great Resignation. But I'm going to go through some statistics here and labor market research, and then I'm going to wait, but I'm going to tell you that I'm going to be reframing this in a little bit different way. So if we look at the actual statistics in the labor market, 40% of people left their jobs simply because they were burned out. I think especially those of us in the nonprofit sector really get that. We all have too much on our plates and we're dealing with this. But this isn't limited to the nonprofit sector. This is across the board. Even big corporations have been cutting back and asking people to do more. This was really mind-blowing to me. 28% of people left their companies or their jobs without another job lined up. Now, I don't know how much of this had to do with the stimulus that was available. Some of it may have, although when I was thinking about that, I was thinking, gee, people got stimulus checks, but it really wasn't all that much money. So how were they able to make this leap of faith, or just were they so fed up that they quit their jobs without something else lined up. I couldn't imagine that. I couldn't help but think of my parents and my father in particular. If I would have done something like that, I would have gotten such a scolding in terms of how could you consider leaving something without having something else lined up. And of course, this is what people have been saying. 37% of people left because they were looking for more money. Well, that may or may not be true. We'll get into that in a little bit. So 28% of people left their jobs. We were talking about burnout, and they were just desperate to leave their jobs. And, burnout was one of the big factors. Of course, burnout was driving the resignations. But here's another thing I want to call out to your attention. People felt that their contributions and ideas were not being valued. Okay, so what does this mean? Now, this doesn't mean that they had an expectation necessarily that just because they came up with an idea that it was going to be accepted. We all know in management that can't necessarily happen, but they didn't feel like they were being heard and valued. I think that's the essence of that. Well-being, that's a big one. We spend a lot of our time at work. And so when you look at that work-life balance and how much time you spend at work, 16% of people left because they felt their well-being wasn't being supported by the company. And we'll talk a little bit about that further on in our webinar today. So when searching for greener pastures, and I like to refer to this as the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, people cited that they wanted to work remotely. That was something that came up that was new because of the pandemic. They wanted better compensation and more employee care. And once again, these are the things, if you looked at the statistics previously, these were the three key items is why we saw a shift in people leaving their jobs. So one of the things that we discovered as a result is that people wanted flexibility, and they wanted to be able to work remotely, and they wanted, once again, better compensation, and they wanted to work with organizations or companies that they felt had really good management. Very, very interesting. So we keep talking about people left because of the money. So when you look at the actual statistics, 29% received a 10 to 19% salary increase, but actually 13% took a pay cut for their new position, and 23% indicated that they were paid the same amount. So, people said at first, at one level, it was about the money and the compensation, but was it really? Of course, we talked about employee care. People wanted that well-being, feeling cared for, feeling valued as a person by their employer. And only 9% of people saw an actual decrease in the number of hours that they were working. So it wasn't so much about the number of hours they were working, right? It was those other factors of care and burnout that were driving some of this. So perhaps I'm going to just read these quotes. Perhaps what's really behind what we're calling the Great Resignation is this collective shift in our mindset, which was fueled by the pandemic, and people reevaluating the idea of what it means to work. And this led to a desire for more meaningful and more impactful, purpose-driven work that might actually change the world. And so, remember I told you we're talking about the Great Resignation? Well, I like the way that Fortune magazine reframed it. This is really more about the Great Awakening. right? And so if people are really truly looking for more meaningful work, that's the sweet spot of us nonprofits, right? That's what we do. We do meaningful work. We do work that impacts people's lives. And so this should be an opportunity for us to take advantage of all these people that are looking for meaningful work. So this was all information that came up, but wait, there's more. So now people have made the shift, right? And a lot of people changed it. We saw a lot of turnover in the job market. But now, most recently, and you see this is from Bloomberg as of mid-July, people are maybe regretting their decision. About a quarter of the are regretting their people left are regretting their decision to leave. And here's something very interesting. Many are finding that they miss their work family. So a quarter of those who left are considering whether they made the right move. And 42% said it didn't live up to their expectations. And here's a big one. They found that they missed their colleagues. And so what this tells us is social connection is a really important part of what we do at work. We spend so much time at work. People begin to feel that the people that they work with are another extension of their family or another family. So those relationships that we have with our colleagues are really, really important. And how we function and interact with each other really make a difference in terms of our perception of how we feel about our jobs and where we work. And just one more thing, this is about the people having the regret about having made the switch. So we know that the job market has changed a little bit. People, companies started laying people off and whatnot. So maybe it was maybe those people who left without another job lined up found it a little more difficult than they anticipated. But look at this next bar in the bar graph. What is it? Almost 20% of the people miss the people at their old company. Then you have the new job isn't what they hoped for. The old job was better than they realized. And where they went to work, the culture of the new organization they were working at wasn't what they expected it to be. So in looking at that, I want to frame that in terms of how does all this information relate to hiring practices now, right? We have really, really good labor market information to go on. And I'm going to tell you, your best recruitment strategy is to retain your current staff. So if you're retaining your staff and you're making that a priority, you won't have to hire as many new staff. So I'd like to and we will talk. Of course, we obviously know that we need to hire new people, regardless of whether it's filling positions for people that have left or you're growing your programs and you need to hire people. So we're going to talk about employment practices in general. But I do want to frame it a little bit in terms of how do we retain our staff? So one of the ways you can retain staff is by investing in training and professional development. Now, this is a little bit of a two-edged sword, right? Because on the one hand, it doesn't cost you as much to invest in someone's training or professional development, certainly as it would to replace that person. On the other hand, when you're investing in their training and their professional development and giving them additional credentials, then chances are they're going to leave you, right? They're going to be better qualified, and yes, that's the chance that you take. However, this is really about creating a culture of caring in your organization. And if you keep somebody for another year or two beyond what they would have stayed with you had you not invested in the professional development, you would have had to hire and train somebody anyway. So and it also really says a lot about your organization and begins to create that culture of caring for your organization. And while we're on that topic of creating a culture of care for your organization, let's talk a little bit about benefits that focus on wellness. Maybe if you offer any kind of benefits through your health insurance, you can go to your the companies that provide your benefits and talk to them about what other benefits they may be able to provide that you don't currently provide. And once again, think of it as it may cost the organization a little bit more money. Some of the things might be free. Some of them you may have access to, but didn't realize, because when you talk to the company in terms of the benefits that are available, people didn't know about it or aren't taking advantage of it. So give that some thought, talk to the companies that provide benefits and see if there's anything there that you're not already getting that might help. And once again, talk to your staff about these are benefits for you, and play those up and make sure that they understand that they're there to be taken advantage of. So we want to foster a work environment that encourages calm and healthy social interactions. So what does that mean exactly? That could mean any number of things. For example, it may be your physical space. Maybe you have a big room with lots of cubicles, and and there's a lot of noise, and maybe there's a way of reconfiguring your office plan layout to create more of a sense of calm. Maybe it's something as simple as adding plants. Maybe it's adding a fish tank. Maybe it could be any number of things in terms of, maybe if you're working in that cubicle type environment, maybe it's providing headsets for your people so that it just reduces the noise level. Could be any number of things. And in a minute, I'm going to ask people to come off a mic and share some ideas that they might have regarding this. How about creating some spaces like a meditation room or a meditation garden, or anywhere, just a room where staff can go to de-stress? We all know that occasionally you have that client interaction that just sets you off. It's very challenging. It's helpful to have a space where you can go just to relax, maybe have some quiet music, or if you have an outdoor space, maybe you have a nice space outside where people can have lunch and interact. Could be any number of things along these lines. Once again, flexible work hours, or the ability to work at least partly remotely. So we know that this isn't always possible. A lot of our organizations had to do this when the pandemic hit because we couldn't meet with clients directly. But then as we started to be able to figure out how to meet with clients, we pulled back on some of those things. But maybe there can be some flexibility. Maybe you can't have somebody work 20 hours a week, but maybe every Thursday afternoon they can work remotely or something. Those little things really mean a lot to employees and your staff, because number one, it gives them the flexibility to work from home. Sometimes it could also be a cost savings. Maybe they don't have to commute on a particular day, and we all know the price of gas and the time that it takes to commute. Those little quality of life things that are impacted by our work lives can add up. And it's also a way for your organization to show that you care about how they feel and want to make their life better. And here's another one, if you haven't already done this, consider reducing the number of hours a week. If you're still on a 40-hour work week, can you reduce your actual hours to 35 hours a week? Is that a possibility? And maybe looking at different blocks of scheduling, creative scheduling that might allow you to do that. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I'm going to ask people, if you would, to come off of your microphone and share if you have any, and you can put your ideas in the chat as well. But if you have any ideas of things that you've done that along these lines that have helped in terms of creating that culture of care for your organization.
Hey, Joel.
Hiya.
At Digital Vibes, sometimes we will put on like a aromatherapy, and also because of our workspace is more creative, we'll play some soft music in the background. I know sometimes the creative team who does the photography, videography, and things like that, they'll turn out the lights and they have like string lights of different colors up. So, we really try to go with the mood of how they're feeling and let them work in the dark if they need to that day and things like that.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Jenna. Anybody else want to share some ideas? Jen?
I'll share a couple things. So at the Lord's Place, back when the pandemic first started, we started a weekly Zoom meeting for all staff to try and stay connected with each other, because we did already have a strong culture and we were worried about losing it. And even though people are starting to return more and more to the office, it was unanimously voted to keep doing the staff Zoom meetings, just because it was, we share news, but we also share like celebrations and things like that of individuals in the organization. So I think it's been a great way to stay connected. And then oh my goodness, I have one other thing that we do. No, I forgot, but oh well. If I think about it, I'll put it in the chat.
Thanks, Jan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pitch in. We did something similar, Jan, to what you did as far as Zoom meetings, because the majority of our staff did work remotely. And so we had a monthly meeting that we used to hold, and we went to doing that weekly. And so one morning of the week, that was a pretty predictable day, we would share what was going on. And that was really a great thing. And then we also have remained a little bit more flexible in terms of on-site work hours. So some days, we all need to be here, but other days, we kind of rotate. Others do have a little dog at home and would insist on being on my lap. So I've worked in the office, but other team members have selected days that they can work remotely. And, it seems to be working.
And Janelle, I'm going to put you on the spot because I know we had a brief conversation yesterday about some of the flexibilities. Of course, we're a virtual organization, but I don't know, Janelle, if you wanted to just take a minute to share a little bit.
Yes. So I, as you might hear, I have a coworker in the background. And so at ESC, at the onset, we definitely had many conversations about what would work best in regards to my availability. And there was a lot of flexibility. And I was a part of the Great Awakening or the Great Resignation. And so having an opportunity to work somewhere where there was a culture that embraced, the fact that I have to balance being a mom as well as an employee, definitely made it an easy decision to jump ship, if you will, and jump on board with nonprofit work. So if you do hear my coworker, that's what Joel is referring to in regards to the flexibility that the organization has allowed me to take care of my kiddo while still making an impact in our South Florida community.
Thanks for sharing that, Janelle. And just in that regard, just in terms of the logistics of how we can do that, because we understand that sometimes Janelle has actually two coworkers sometimes. And so, you know, we share a calendar and availability, and we're quite flexible. We understand sometimes that things come up and we shift things around. So we're very understanding and flexible, and we really value Janelle's contributions to what it is that we do. So that's an important part of how we function as an organization. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. Give me one moment.
You know, one little thing while you're sharing your screen,
Sure.
Joel, is that we saw the uptick in kind of that mindfulness and the increased awareness of the impact of stress. And a number of the workshops that we offered, we had a lot of participation in. And so that's something that's been a shift for us that we'll continue to do.
Mm-hmm. Very, very important. And just talking about these things is really important. And knowing your staff, knowing that this is on your organization's radar is really, really important, and really contributes to how they feel about where their job and where they work. So we talked about retaining people and all those things. And these are some of the same principles that we have when it comes to hiring new people. Like, why does somebody want to work for your organization other than the actual job and the compensation and the benefits? It's really about the culture of your organization and the work that you do. So as part of that, when you are going to be hiring, here's a few best practices that I wanted to share with you. The first of which, and just so everybody knows, I'm going to be sharing these slides with everybody. So you're welcome to take notes, but you know, you don't necessarily have to take pictures of the slides and whatnot as we go. We'll share these with you afterwards. Labor market information is really important. And so there's a resource called ONET, and this is the same resource that the Career Source system uses. I'm going to change my screen share here and hopefully get the right one. Give me just a moment here. Nope, wrong one. Hang on. Okay, let me see if I get this right. Okay. And this is not what I want to share, but here it is. Okay, here we go. Are you all seeing what says ONET online? Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is a free resource to you. So when you start to hire, look at the job description. You'll be able to get great labor market information in terms of salary ranges for these types of positions. And you can put in, for example, I put in case manager, and I came up with all different kinds of case managers. And let's say I wanted to go into healthcare social workers, and I'll go into that, and then it'll tell me comparable job titles. I do want to tell you that, you know, that's something I want you to consider also when it comes to both retaining staff and attracting new staff, is the job title. That can be really, really important. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So if you want to look at what a healthcare social worker does, it tells you the tasks, what the skills are, what kind of activities, and then you can drill down much further than I thought. In terms of looking here, it'll tell you what the median wage is. Then you can drill down to your zip code and your area, and you can look at all kinds of information as to what the salary ranges for that type of position. So I'm going to change my share back here to, okay. Bear with me for a moment. Oh, hang on. Okay, so we talked about doing some labor market research when you begin to hire. Then the next thing is when you post a job, this should be a marketing piece, not a job description. So if you have a tendency to put the job description as you would give to the future employee as your job posting, you're missing an opportunity, because what have we talked about? People want to work for organizations where they resonate with your mission and the culture of your organization. For example, everybody knows what a social worker does, or a case manager, or whatever the position, a CFO, a development person. Everybody knows the general things that those people do. So don't spend a lot of time describing what the actual job responsibilities are. Of course, there are some things that you will want to talk about. For example, you want to talk about the culture of your organization and what a great place it is to work. You want to include pictures, because people relate to other people. So when they see people on your job posting that they can identify with or relate to, it reinforces the culture of your organization. And then, well, actually, I'm going to go back a minute here, because I want to share. We're doing a search right now for an organization in Palm Beach County, and once again, where's all my stuff here? Okay, and so even though we have this job posted on Indeed, we have it posted on the Nonprofits First job board, and you're all seeing this, correct? Is that a yes?
Yes, we're seeing the 501c jobs.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then this is it so happens that we're doing a search now for the Armory Art Center. It's a CEO search that's just started, and I just wanted to share with you that if you look at what we're doing here, is, we talk about the organization. Who is the organization? What do they do? Well, you see the mission and mission and vision of the organization, and then it talks about the qualities of the person that would be a really good candidate. And so we haven't even talked about really any of the job description here. Then, of course, it talks about salaries and benefits. And then this will lead into my next slide, which is how you apply. Now, you see that we could have people apply through the Nonprofits First job board, or through any of the other job boards that we also do. But we say, in order to apply, you need to apply through this link on Indeed. And I'll get into why we do that in a moment. But you also see that we have a video of the organization. Once again, we're talking about the culture of the organization. I'm going to go back to my other screen. And moment here. Okay. And so we like using Indeed as the focal point for all of our postings. And the reason that we do this is because when we get people to apply through Indeed, they allow you to have applicants take 2 different assessments. Now, the assessments that they can take are generally offered relative to the type of job position you're posting. So if you're posting a position for an office manager or a front desk person or a case manager, those will all come up with different assessments that people can take. And we do this because, number one, we want to know that the person who's applying is serious, that they're not just applying for their 5 job searches they have to do for reemployment benefits, for example. We want to know that, and each assessment, they're not overwhelming. They take about 10 to 12 minutes each to do. And so it also gives us a baseline to be able to compare their skill level, and it rates them from just completed all the way to expert. There's 5 different categories. So it gives you an idea of how they scored relative to the types of screening that you're doing for skill screening. And we take that into consideration, although we don't see it as the be all end all, because we know that some people just don't test well. So that's only one factor. But the most important thing is when they read the posting with specific instructions that say, in order to be considered, you have to take the assessments. And also, if you see here, provide a unique cover letter, not just a cover letter that you send out to everybody, but something that talks about why you're particularly qualified and perhaps interested in this particular position. It shows us that they are serious. They also have the ability to answer 3 questions in a phone screening on Indeed. Those are very informative because you get to hear the person. Are they well spoken? Once again, it's another hurdle. How serious are they, and how much do they want the job? And the additional benefit of having the cover letter is that it gives you a writing sample right off the bat. So those are all things that we look at and that we recommend. And so when we use Indeed, we use it as the center of a hub for doing our searches. And so we will also post on social media. We'll post on job boards like I just showed you, like on the Nonprofits First job board and other job boards. We tell people within the organization if they have people they want to refer them. We send them the link to apply through Indeed, because we want everybody going through the same source. And there's also some, Rochelle, I'll call on you in just a second and see if you've got your hand raised. And so this way, everybody has the same entry point into the position, and it gives you as the employer the ability to sort people, to organize the information, because you can export all your candidates from Indeed into a spreadsheet and begin rating them and doing all kinds of things. Rochelle, I saw that you had your hand raised. Do you have a question?
I'm not sure if you touched on it, but what about Idealist?
Yeah. Now, once again, Idealist is great, but when we post on Idealist, in the same way that when we post on LinkedIn or Facebook or Nonprofits First, we tell them we do the posting and we'll pay for the posting there, but we tell them to actually apply, you need to go to this link in Indeed, because if they don't go to the link, then they're not giving you the assessments and all the same information that everybody else is giving.
Okay,
right?
thank you.
And in the same way, when you have whether it's an internal candidate or people reach out to you directly at your organization because they heard there's a job that's available, we tell our clients, send them to Indeed, right? So that everybody goes through the exact same process, and we have the benefit of that information. And so typically when we have people go through that process, when we screen them, then what we do is, and this is what we do for our clients, but you can do this for yourself, is we have their resume, we have their cover letter, we have their assessment scores, we have their responses to the phone interview. And then when we do an initial interview ourselves, which we do via Zoom, and we record, we send them the recording, and you have all that information to look at when you're looking at a candidate. It really makes it, it puts it all together in a way that when you're getting it in a scattershot way, somebody sends you a resume, then you'll have a cover letter. If your organization has an actual employment application form, we would include that also in terms of before we interview somebody, we would have them send us the employment application for our client, these are all things that you can do, for yourself. But we think there's a tremendous advantage to doing it this way, and we found great success in doing it. Here's another one. All you need is one. Now, I'm assuming that you're only trying to fill one position. And sometimes we have a search that we're doing where they need 5 success coaches, for example. So that's a little bit different. But all you need is one. So when you get that person that checks all the boxes, right? Don't overthink it. Paralysis by analysis. Lots of times people want to have lots of candidates. In the old days, we would do a search and put together a list of 5 or 6 candidates that we would all refer at the same time. And then our client would then go through and start interviewing. In this employment and labor market, you can't take that much time to do it. It's really important to move through it quickly so that people don't, your really highly qualified candidates are going to find a job somewhere else. So if you were to interview people and wait the 3 or 4 weeks that it would take you to put together 5 or 6 candidates before you then go to your next phase of interviewing and screening, then chances are you will have lost the really good ones because they're going to get hired by somebody else or they're going to lose interest. Marilyn, I see you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, you might cover this later on. I'm just curious because I have people who I know who are looking for jobs. When you do go through the interview process, how do you actually vet somebody? Do you have like a standard list of questions for a particular position that you assign points to, or how do you do that?
So that's a great question. So we have some questions that we like to ask. Lots of them are very specific to the position. However, there's some general questions that we like to ask in an interview. The first question we always ask is, tell me something about yourself not related to work. Because I feel in nonprofit work, work-life balance is really, really important, right? And I want to get to know you a little bit more as a person. And we're going to be talking lots about work, but what do you like to do when you're not working? Do you have any passions? Do you have any interests? Do you have any special awards that you've received for this or that? And it's a great icebreaker, and it also gives you great insight into the person that you're interviewing. The last question I like to ask is, okay, so we've talked about all these things relative to the job position that you're interviewing for, and I've gotten to know you a little bit better, but obviously we haven't had a chance to talk about everything. And so if there's something that you would like me to know about yourself that you think would be important for me to consider in terms of your qualifications for this position, here's your chance. Tell me anything about yourself that we might not have touched on. And so it gives a person an opportunity to really, if there was something that just didn't come up in the course of the interview, that could be very, very impactful. Now, in terms of scoring, we have had clients where we actually have a scorecard because they're very specific and they want certain things checked off, and we will tailor our questions to that. But in general, I've been hiring people for most of my profession, for all of my professional career, and I've probably personally hired several thousand people in the various organizations and businesses that I've had. And the one thing I've learned is that there's no secret sauce, right? There's no way you can get, I like to go on my instincts. I like to go on face value, but we all know sometimes we hire somebody who we think is a rock star, and they turn out to be a dud. And then sometimes we hire somebody that we think is, I'm going to take a flyer on this person and give them a chance, but I have my reservations, and they turn out to be a rock star. So you just never know. The one thing is that certainly in the state of Florida, it's employment at will. If you make a hiring decision, assuming that you follow the regular labor laws, you're not stuck with this person forever. So that's why I like to encourage people, go with your gut. We're going to try and get as much data as you can. Get that writing sample. We check references, of course. Do a background screening. Especially not all positions need that, but certainly many positions need that. Those are all your due diligence that you need to do. But the other thing is, if you get somebody, maybe the first, second, third candidate in, and they say, yes, we really resonate with this person. This person could do the job. I want, make him an offer of employment contingent on their reference checks and their background screening. And that way, once again, you want to make sure that you have constant touches with them. You don't want great delays. If there are long gaps between when they hear from you, then they are going to think that you're not interested or that you're disorganized as an organization. So if you can't meet with them promptly, communicate it. Tell them, I'm sorry, I'm going on vacation, but I want to schedule an interview for when I get back. Those communication things are really important. Also, how you communicate is really important. Do you communicate via text, email, phone call? I say all three, because emails have sometimes stuff goes to your junk folder. We know this well, Marilyn, right? Sometimes your phone call doesn't go through because you have a filter on your phone. We all get bombarded, right? So establish, initially communicate with them in all three ways that you can. Some people use WhatsApp. I mean, you can do any number of things, but then find out what works for them, and then tell them, okay, just make sure that when I send this employment application to you or whatever, that you check your junk mail in case you don't see it, and tell them, when you're going to be sending them the information. Time is of the essence. Once again, we can't afford to take inordinate amounts of time to make decisions and to go through the hiring process. So whatever you need to do on your end within your organization to move it along, do so. It is still going to take time. It just takes time to go through the process. And that's where the communication piece comes in, because you want to have frequent touches with your candidates. Otherwise, I can guarantee you that you'll lose them. And once again, here we go with frequent touches. So a few more things, and I want to be mindful of the time. We've got about 8 minutes left from what I can see. And I do want to make sure we go through a few things and have a chance to answer any other questions that you might have. So lots of times you get applications from people and you say, oh, they're too experienced for this position. Remember, earlier on, people are shifting because they want meaningful work. Well, what about somebody who's been in the workforce for a long time and now is applying for a position that you might think is beneath them, right? They're overqualified, is the word, right? Well, Maybe they just want meaningful work. Maybe they resonate with the mission of your organization. Maybe they don't need the income in the same way they did previously. Maybe their kids are grown up and out of the house. So keep that in mind. It's really, really, really important. And it will open up lots of opportunities in terms of casting your net for people who might be really good people to work for your organization. And once again, do you need to hire people who have experience working for a nonprofit? Nonprofits are really just another type of business, right? It's a company like any other company. So do they have to have nonprofit experience? Now we do understand that there's certain times you have a position that's credentialed, like a social worker, or there's some things along those lines that your funders require. So I get that. But other than that, look at the person's experience and look at, do they have skills that are transferable? And once again, are they looking for meaningful work? Because those are the people that are going to stick. Once they come in, chances are they're going to want to stay for a long time, especially if you have a good culture within your organization and they really feel valued and enjoy what they're doing. Okay, here's one we often forget about. Reach out to your existing staff and ask them to refer people they know, whether it's family or friends or colleagues. And that social connection, remember we talked about that? That social connection is really underrated. So don't forget to ask your staff, hey, do you know, we got this position. Do you know anybody either that you've come in contact with or somebody that you know what the position entails because you work here already? And people also like to have their friends, well, mostly like to have their friends working with them, right? Sometimes there's exceptions, but they'll understand that the person could be a good fit. And is there any way that you can give them some kind of reward for making a referral? I do know of organizations that will give like a gift card if one of their staff makes a referral and a hire is made as a result of that, or an extra day off or some other perceived benefit. Those are all things that you can consider doing. Here's a couple things not to do. If you're paying for a job posting on a web portal like Indeed, don't post the job description and the job opening on your own website's job page. The reason you don't do this is because Indeed and ZipRecruiter and all these other sources, they have web crawlers that go through all the websites. And if they see that you have a position available at your organization, and you also happen to be paying for a posting on Indeed so that you can get people to take the assessments and have all the benefits of doing that, they're not going to go to your paid posting. They're going to go to the free posting that Indeed does that for free, right? So they're going to bypass that whole process. And once again, I recommend that you centralize everything, that you don't have a scatter. You don't want to get resumes here and referrals here, and you don't want to have LinkedIn applications and ZipRecruiter, and you don't want to have them Idealists. You don't want to have them all over the place. Centralize it all in one hub. And one other thing, don't leave your job posting live on any job site for longer than 3 to 4 weeks. What happens is, number one, that posting begins to fall down in the rankings because it gets older. Most importantly, anybody who comes across it, if they see an old posting, they're going to assume that the job's already filled or it's too late to get in the game. So those are a couple things not to do. And as I mentioned, we don't hold a patent on best practices when it comes to hiring. So at this point, what I want to do is we have at least a few minutes left, and I'm happy to stay on a few minutes longer. I don't have a hard stop. And I'd like to answer any questions or hear any of your ideas for for things that you've had success with. So I'm going to stop sharing and open it up.
One thing I like is collaboration. I collaborate with my CEO when or the director of the department that I'm hiring for. So that helps me to make sure that I have two pairs of eyes looking at a resume or an application.
Mhm.
Also, not to veer off, I'm sorry. Will you make your PowerPoint available?
I'm sorry, what?
Will you be making your PowerPoint available?
Yes, yes. After this, I'll be sending out the slides.
Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. How about anybody else? Have you had success or challenges that we haven't had a chance to talk about?
I think you covered a lot of them. We've seen the prospect pool coming in very slowly, and that 1 month cycle, not keeping them up there for longer than that. It just seems to kind of go down to zero. But you said a number of things, but one thing I also want to comment on, one of our other partners, actually Applicant Pro, which is the applicant tracking system that's linked to our 501c jobs. They've done some kinds of input. I can't think of his name right now, but anyway, he talked about the internal referral system, and he emphasized how important that is, and to keep an ongoing internal recruitment program, that it is a huge source. And just a personal comment on hiring people who are overqualified. You just be blind to that. Like you said, people are making job decisions based on completely different criteria now, and don't think for them or make decisions. In Palm Beach County, the percentage of the population who are being displaced in jobs from about 50 on is huge. And it's a great source of great opportunity for organizations to get really great qualified staff. So keep an open mind. My 2 cents for the day.
Thanks, Marilyn. And I do think it's important to keep an open mind. As I said, we don't hold the patent on this. These are just some suggestions from our own experience. And you may find some other things in other sources. Marilyn, mentioned the portal that you use, Applicant Pro. So we recently posted a position, so we used Applicant Pro for that particular one. But once again, we like to focus on, and I don't know if you have the ability in Applicant Pro to do the same thing. You may, to focus all the applications to come in through one source. That's certainly a possibility. Yeah, this is an opportunity. We have people who are looking for meaningful work. That's our sweet spot as nonprofits. And so if you look to use that to your advantage, once again, promote your organization. First of all, you got to make sure you do have a good culture where you work. And assuming that you do, invest in that and then promote it. That's what people are looking for. In my experience in hiring in the nonprofit sector, you want to hire people who resonate with your mission, right? So tell people what it is that you do, promote it, because those are the people that are really going to be your best employees long term. I'm going to do one last share just so you have some information about us here. There's a QR code if you want to scan it to get our website. I am going to be sending up the PowerPoint slides after this. I'll coordinate that with you, Marilyn. And beyond that, It's been a pleasure meeting with you all today. I don't know, Janelle, if you had anything else that you wanted to add to the conversation.
I think you gave us a wealth of information, Joel. And I think Marilyn touched on something that I was going to mention about being open-minded when you're looking at candidates, just making sure that as you're reviewing resumes that you are, you know, sometimes even taking the time to have a phone call with a candidate to check in about anything that you might consider a red flag, per se, just to hash out some of the things that are occurring in our current job market. Gaps in employment and short time spans at different places of employment can definitely be explained by, you know, moves and shifts in careers and, you know, family emergencies and things of that nature. So I definitely think that Marilyn mentioned being open minded, and it can branch out into so many different areas when you're looking at candidates' resumes. And yeah, other than that, I think you covered everything, Joel. Thanks so much.
Okay.
And did you put do you have a slide with your contact information, Joel, as we get close to the end here?
Yeah, I just showed it.
Okay,
I just showed it. It has a QR code. It has our contact information, and then that's going to be. And I'm going to send you a copy of the slides to distribute to the people that
perfect,
participated
perfect.
or who registered but weren't able to participate. And unless anybody has any other questions, this is an exciting time. So in terms of, and I will say that I am seeing a shift again with more people applying for jobs. So I think that's a good thing. But these are all things that you want to do ongoing anyway, right? In terms of hiring practices. So number one, you know, invest in your culture, do what you need to do to retain your current staff, to promote your current staff, to have a program to develop people from within your organization. And then when you do need to hire, just a few suggestions that we shared. So hopefully you'll find some benefit to this.
Great suggestions. I had to pop away for a real quick minute, so I missed that. Thanks for making sure that you shared your contact information. In closing, one last thing that I don't know if I said at the beginning, hats off for nonprofit nominations are still open just for a few more days. They close at 5 o'clock promptly on Monday, the 22nd. So if you haven't and there's somebody that you'd like to nominate, make sure that you get that in. And member networking, you know, all work and no play. We don't believe in that. You know, it's time to get together now that things are open. We'll be out at Actors Rep on Dixie Highway, 1000 North Dixie Highway on September 1st, and hope to see you all there. And thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
participation and joining us.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Yes, thanks.